Welcome. My name is David Sue, and I'm Chief of Staff at JFF. We are a national nonprofit dedicated to the transformation of the American education and workforce systems to drive economic advancement for all, and I am thrilled to welcome you to today's discussion. We're going to be talking about what's really a national imperative to support a more equitable workforce development. And we'll focus on efforts that organizations are taking in line with the call from the Biden administration to make further investments, especially in the fields of broadband, construction, and electrification. We're going to turn in just a moment to a chat with Carmel Martin from the White House and a terrific panel. But I first wanted to reflect on what a critical moment this is. We all know about the supply chain issues that are facing the country and volatility in the economy. Yet it's also a time of a lot of momentum. The bipartisan infrastructure law passed earlier this year. There's new legislation on the horizon, and there's a real push from the White House to encourage continued investment. So for today's discussion, we've brought together a great group from across sectors because it's really going to take people working together from across the board. So we have a policymaker, an employer, a startup, and a union to see how working together is going to drive this momentum. At JFF, we've been working to encourage investment in some of these areas from the challenge, again, which are broadband, construction, and electrification. One thing that we've done is our work through apprenticeship and including a commitment that we've made to get 400 employers to adopt diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility policies to remove barriers and increase access for underrepresented populations in registered apprenticeships. In addition to working with these larger employers, we're also committing to working with startup companies in these sectors to drive innovation and expand hiring, and you'll hear from them in a few minutes. Lastly, we've committed to convening national leaders, such as yourselves on this webinar, to join the challenge and continue expanding skills-based programs in these fields. So I'm happy now to introduce and have a conversation with Carmel Martin. She is Deputy Assistant to the President and Deputy Director of the Domestic Policy Council for Economic Mobility at the White House. She's someone with whom I had the pleasure of serving at the U.S. Department of Education during the Obama administration, and she spent time at the Center for American Progress and on Capitol Hill. So welcome, Carmel.
Thanks so much, David. Thanks to you and everyone at JFF for your leadership in the area of ensuring that our workers are prepared for good jobs. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here and talk a little bit about the administration's work in this area and the Talent Pipeline Challenge. I'm thrilled to be here and honored to be in a session with such powerful women who are doing such great work on the ground. So thanks again.
Yes, yeah, we do have a wonderful all-female panel in a few minutes. And I know we do want to focus the bulk of our conversation today on the Talent Pipeline Challenge. But before we get to that specifically, we all do know that the president signed the bipartisan infrastructure law earlier this year, which I know is a major driver of the administration's agenda. So I wonder if you could talk about what opportunities you see coming out of those investments, especially for workers of color and women in these fields.
Sure, love to talk about it. So the bipartisan infrastructure law, we think, is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to rebuild America with safe, reliable, and resilient infrastructure. But just as importantly, it is a tremendous opportunity to provide good jobs to American workers. And we are committed to ensuring that those jobs are available to all, and in particular to ensure that groups that have historically been unrepresented in some of those fields have an equal playing field in terms of being able to work in those areas, particularly workers of color and women. First, I just want to say that as an administration, we've worked really hard to hit the ground running. And in the 8 months since President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure law, the administration has pushed over $110 billion out the door and more in competitive programs. More than 5,000 projects are being funded across 50 states and the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. Road work is underway. Homes are being retrofitted to save on utility costs. We're delivering record funding to states to provide cleaner water, and tens of millions of residents are already saving money on affordable high-speed internet. But we know, particularly this group knows, that these projects, for them to be successful, we need a workforce that can deliver on this once-in-a-generation opportunity. So we know we need to build this workforce, and we need to keep gender and racial diversity in mind so that everyone has opportunity. Many of these jobs have not gone to underserved communities, particularly women and people of color. But with all of your help, this can be the moment that we finally get it right. So to put it simply, the bipartisan infrastructure law provides a unique opportunity to not only rebuild and improve our infrastructure, but also to create and expand equitable pathways into high quality and union jobs. But we need everyone to be able to do it. We know that this can't happen in Washington. It's going to happen on the ground in the communities where projects are getting built, where companies are hiring, where community colleges exist, and where union members work. So it's going to take all of us to grow the economy sustainably and equitably for decades to come. And that's the partnership that we're looking to have with all of you.
Yeah, it's great to hear about that law and the momentum it's already starting to galvanize. Obviously, legislative action is just one lever that you all have at the administration to boost workforce opportunity. I know you've launched this challenge, the Talent Pipeline Challenge, as a way to get action and encourage partnerships from people from different sectors. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the challenge and what some of your goals are for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity. As I said, for this law to meet its promise, we really need everyone to be helping us to work towards it, which is why, we're doing everything we can to leverage the federal dollars, not just in the infrastructure bill, but in other federal funding streams like our general workforce development funding, other funding streams, and making sure that we're, again, using every lever that the administration has to support this endeavor. But we recognize that public-private partnerships are going to be at the heart of really making the change happen that we want to see. So that's why the Biden-Harris administration launched the Talent Pipeline Challenge this summer. It's a nationwide call to action for employers, education and training providers, state, local, tribal, territorial governments, community-based organizations, philanthropy, and nonprofits. We need all of those actors to make tangible commitments that support equitable workforce development. As you said, David, we're focused on 3 critical infrastructure sectors with the challenge: broadband, construction, and electrification, with a particular focus on electrical vehicle charging and battery manufacturing. Through the challenge, we're basically calling them up people to think about 3 different sets of activities. First, where do we need to build new equitable programs where there's limited training supply or growing demand? Second, how do we scale up existing high quality programs and partnerships like building trades, apprenticeship programs, and or bringing those programs to new places? And then third, which really weaves throughout everything, is how do we ensure that as we're building and expanding programs that we're making sure that they are equitable pathways to good jobs. That means making sure that we're thinking about pre-apprenticeship programs. It also means we need to think about wraparound supports that could include covering the cost of childcare, transportation, or emergency aid for workers in training programs. We've heard loud and clear from many of the people representing workers in this space that providing a training program isn't enough. We also need to make sure that people can access them. That's basically the concept. We've been just really excited about the momentum that we've seen from a broad range of stakeholders. It's really been energizing for us. When we launched the Talent Pipeline Challenge, leaders in the administration, across the administration, from my boss, Ambassador Susan Rice, who leads the Domestic Policy Council, National Economic Council Director Brian Deese, Infrastructure Coordinator Mitch Landrieu, American Rescue Plan Coordinator Gene Sperling, and our Labor Secretary Marty Walsh, joined with CEOs of big and small employers, training providers, union leadership, training, and others who support the goals of the challenge to make the announcement. And we're really having all of government commitment to this, with leadership from key agencies, from energy, commerce, transportation, and beyond. So since then, we have been inspired by the stakeholders who've expressed interest in joining the pledge. Commitments made as part of our summer sprint will complement the federal government's investment, as I said before, and really help us to ensure that we're ready to meet the demands of the law.
That's great. Yeah, that's great from a 30,000-foot view. Are there a couple of concrete examples that you have in mind of actions that employers or other stakeholders are already taking that you'd like to see them take in these sectors?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the beauty of this challenge is that everyone can get involved and has a role to play, again, from employers, nonprofits, philanthropies, trade associations, unions, training providers, state and local governments. So we're trying our best to engage with all of those actors and helping them think through not just what they can contribute to the cause, but how can we break down silos and work together to address these issues. So within construction, some of the examples that we're trying to promote are a union working with a group of employers to launch or expand a pre-apprenticeship program to build pathways into existing and hopefully expanding apprenticeship programs. Within electrification, and we're working with employers to make commitments to training and certifying their workers through the electrical vehicle infrastructure training program to ensure that electricians are prepared to install our electrical vehicle charging stations around the country. And within broadband, an employer and industry association could work with training providers like community colleges and union training programs to help build out the training programs, but also make concrete commitments to hire more graduates from those programs. We know that all of these things can help create equitable pathways into good jobs. The list is much longer than the examples that I mentioned, but I think those on the ground also have a good sense of what's needed. But those are some concrete examples of what we'd like to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think we'll probably hear some more from our panel later. I wonder if you've done a thought experiment or anything of looking back in a year after this is launched. What do you hope to see? How will the world be different in a year?
Yeah, we have thought about that. I mean, I guess the first thing I'd say is we have set up the challenge to be somewhat of a initial sprint towards our longer term goals, and our longer term goals will incorporate other sectors in addition to the three we're focused on here. We realize that, again, the work is going to have to be molded to local and regional contexts. So, once we're hoping to that this challenge will be a down payment on a much larger effort. So, I think some of the things that we're really hoping to be able to point to a year from now is that we have been able to support people on the ground who are looking to break down barriers and really establish partnerships in this space. And we see those partnerships grow in number and size, which, partnerships to build apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships, support employers to recruit diverse candidates, partnerships to provide wraparound services to workers in training programs. And, what that means is we need, employers working directly with training providers to help mold programs, but also guarantee that graduates have jobs at the end of them. We need to see the workforce system and the education system breaking down silos and working together to figure out the best way to deliver the programs that workers need. We need to make sure that the people in charge at the state and local level of actually, building the roads and bridges and the charging stations, that they're partnering with the people in government who are doing education and training and bringing in employers and nonprofits. So, a lot of that is already happening on the ground. Your panel are a testament to that. And I know most of the people listening in are working hard on those activities. So, we really want to be able to, in the short term, lift up and amplify those models, strong workforce models at the local, state, and national level, so that a year from now we see more programs, but we see more programs with that partnership at its core and equity at its core. And all of this, obviously is in service of the ultimate goal that all workers, whether you're a woman, a person of color, or from an underserved community, you have a fair shot at a good infrastructure job in construction, electrification, and broadband, because you've had access to training programs that work for you and that are of high quality. And if we do all that right, we also feel very confident that we're going to contribute substantially to another big goal, which is ensuring that our communities have access to roads, bridges, broadband, green energy, which we know is ultimately going to make our economy and our country more successful and more resilient. So that's sort of the bigger picture 1 year lens.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned the folks that are watching. I think we have some folks live and people who will watch it later. If they want to get involved in the challenge and make a commitment, what do you think the best way is for them to do so?
Please, we can send around contact information, but please reach out and let us know, and we'll connect. We are partnering with our different agencies here, so we'll make sure that that you get any support that you need. We've already had hundreds of we've conversations with hundreds of organizations. So we'll, work hard at making sure that people are connected and have any support that they need moving forward.
Great. And we'll get that contact information up shortly. And I just have one more question before we move to the panel. And I know it's not directly related to the challenge, but while I have you, I know Congress is debating another infrastructure package, the Inflation Reduction Act. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you see that complementing this work.
Well, first of all, we're very excited about that, and hoping for smooth sailing towards passage, in the very near term. There's lots there that will also complement and contribute to our efforts. And I think the thing that I would probably lift up at the top is the critical investments in a green energy economy, which include tax credits. That embedded in the tax credits are incentives for employers to make investments in apprenticeship programs. So, very directly relevant to this, to this conversation, and also, will really enhance the investments that are being made through the bipartisan infrastructure law. Other just critical investments, like ensuring that people have access to high quality, affordable healthcare. Some people can't access training programs if they don't have access to healthcare. So we need to make sure that that's a real opportunity, while also bringing down the costs of prescription drugs, and making our tax system more fair. So really huge wins for the American people, for the economy, but specifically will contribute, invest by helping to create investments in our workforce system and our clean energy economy.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Carmel, for joining us. We really appreciate you're coming to talk to us today and the work that you and your colleagues are doing. We'll certainly be following the progress, and I think many of us on the call will be supporting the challenge in the weeks to come. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and kudos to the panel for all the great work you're doing.
Great. And on that point, I am happy to turn the mic over to my colleague from JFF Labs, Ana Maria Aristizabal, who will lead us through a great discussion.
Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. It's such a great pleasure to be here. As David said, my name is Ana Maria Aristizabal, and I am a senior advisor at JFF Labs. Today, I have the honor to be on a panel with three amazing leaders who you will hear from today. Yvette Ellis, the co-founder of Charger Help, a startup that repairs electric vehicle stations and trains people from local communities to become EV charging station technicians. We also have Michelle Armstrong, who is the head of philanthropy at Ares Management Corporation, and is also the executive director of Ares Charitable Foundation. Ares, in partnership with JFF, has launched a wonderful initiative called Climate Resilient Employees for a Sustainable Tomorrow, CREST, which aims to create in 5 years through a 25 million grant funded program, prepare program workers for climate resilient jobs. And last but not least, Leah Rambo, who is the Director of Training for Smart Local 28 Union. And Leah herself has been a tradeswoman and a sheet worker for the past 30 years. And as a Director of Training at Local 28, she's trained over 3,000 apprentices and active members and has helped increase greatly the female representation at Local 28. So with that, let's jump right into it. Thank you, panelists. And I'm going to start with Leah. Leah, you've been a prominent voice in the labor movement, and especially for increasing gender equality in the workplace. What improvements are you seeing in the fields of construction, broadband, or electrification that have typically historically excluded women? And I am also curious, as part of your answer, to hear how through this challenge, what more changes can we start and hope to see for female workers and learners?
So, I mean, I see a lot of improvements for women over the years. And I'm going to say, in comparison to the 30 plus years ago where I started, I think some of the things that really support women entering the trades and staying in the trades are the increased number of laws that support worker safety. Women do tend to be a little bit more openly concerned about their safety at work, and that's something that encourages women to come in. Another thing is, I see a difference in the contractors themselves in their hiring practices. I mean, they're much more open to the idea of bringing women in and hiring them in the construction industry. And instead of the idea of assuming what we can't do, they're more likely to look at and say, well, let's see what they can do. So you're giving a little bit more of a fair shot just to try it out and to see if you can succeed, which is what most women are just looking for. Another thing is just the amount of women coming in. We just finished a recruitment for apprenticeship, and our pool had about 20% women coming in. But I see this both in the direct entry type of programs, like pre-apprenticeship programs, but also just in the national recruitment. So that gives me the indication that we're doing better in terms of how we are advertising, where we're looking, making sure that the posters and the pictures and the message that we are sending out can appeal to a diverse crowd. And there's more equitable training within the apprenticeship program. And I'm going to, give kudos to the Office of Apprenticeship. That's where I do spend most of my time. But they're training reps. They're talking to us. They're looking to see the actual type of tasks that are being put in place so that women aren't put in these menial, non-skilled tasks, but are also learning the full, gamut of the trades. And I'd say the last thing that I want to at least mention for this question is that when there are allegations of discrimination or harassment that come up, I see us quicker to investigate and to, with an eye towards a resolution of the problem, not so much the pointing of fingers and who did what, but how do we solve this problem and having a zero tolerance towards discrimination and harassment on the job.
Thank you, Leah. So inspiring what you're doing and sharing with us. And on that vein, Michelle, I was curious if maybe you could share with us more about the CREST initiative, which one of their goals is to train 25,000 individuals and place them in clean energy jobs. We are very curious to know more about how is Ares prioritizing the diversification of talent pipelines and making sure that communities of color benefit from this initiative. You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ana Maria. Thank you for both the question and the opportunity to join today's dialogue with the sustained group of fellow panelists. So I'll begin by saying who we are. So the Ares Charitable Foundation is the philanthropic arm of Ares Management Corporation, which is a leading alternative investment manager. And at the foundation, we are striving to accelerate equality of economic opportunity because we want to be sure that people everywhere have equitable access to knowledge, resources, and opportunities that they need to achieve their full potential. So one of the ways that we help to drive towards and to advance that mission is through funding high quality nonprofits for initiatives that prepare people to enter the workforce, as well as to reskill for what we see as emerging jobs, including careers in the green sector. So this funding priority, coupled with the unfortunate harsh reality of climate change that I'm sure we're all experiencing this very hot summer, are key reasons why we launched Climate Resilient Employees for Sustainable Tomorrow, or what we call CREST, which is a 5-year, $25 million initiative. And we're executing CREST through 2 strategic grantees, Jobs for the Future and also World Resources Institute, with JFF in particular paying attention to what it takes to both prepare and reskill individuals for green jobs in the US. And so through CREST in particular, we are intentionally focusing on populations that we see philanthropy and climate strategists frequently overlooking and really being at risk of leaving behind. And that includes people of color, it includes women, it also includes individuals of lower SES or socioeconomic status. And our intent through CREST is to help disrupt those racial, gender, and systemic inequities that often propel and drive occupational segregation, particularly when it comes to the green economy. And I'll end by saying that CREST for us is not only an initiative that the Ares Foundation has stood up, but it's certainly indicative of and reflective of our firm-wide commitment to address climate change, even as we're helping to hopefully drive towards ensuring that there is a just transition to a green economy and to clean energy. And we're doing that not only through our philanthropic efforts, but also through the work that my colleagues who are in DEI and ESG are helping to undertake and to launch.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I couldn't think of a better segue to bring in Yvette from Charter Help, which, as I mentioned, is a growing startup that prioritizes workforce development and is making happen all of these green jobs for the future. And Yvette, we've heard from many small companies, especially startups, that want to expand workforce development, but are really worried that it takes too long, it is really too expensive. What do you say to those companies?
That's not true. That would be the first thing. That's not true. But I do understand. I am, a co-founder, so I do understand what is at stake for startups, what kind of goals, really ambitious, drastic goals you have to meet to really get your business going. So I definitely understand workforce development sounding like this other big push that you don't have the manpower or the resources for. However, workforce development is actually like ingrained into our country's entire workforce system, right? We have one-stops, we have workforce development centers, we have community colleges, you have the apprenticeship programs. It is a point of taking some time to connect with those in the areas, in the markets that you thrive in and tap into that talent. What we found is our retention has been great with the folks that we've worked with and hired from our team is excellent. They're hungry. They want to get in here. It's a new opportunity, definitely coachable. Just a great group of people that if you're working with Workforce Development Center or a community college, you're definitely trying to either transition, transfer, industries. So you have people that are just really agile and willing to bend and go the length and do all the things as you start up your new company. So I found it completely that we solely built our initial technician team from workforce development centers, programs, agencies, community colleges, folks out of gas and oil, the refineries, like for instance, for refineries, their workforce development programs that they have, safety is off the shelf. So you can even grab the best of the different surrounding industries when you work with workforce development programs. So I would say, don't believe the hype. And I would say make some contact. And that is also another way to move us towards that equitable, inclusive workforce that we want. So, 2020, everybody wanted to be equitable and inclusive. This is the way we do it. We reach out, we work with apprenticeship programs, we work with community colleges, we work with workforce development centers to get folks on the playing field to be able to compete for these once in a lifetime jobs, as Carmel said, that are coming around. And the only way to do that is to carve out some time to make that change and make sure everyone is included in this opportunity.
Thank you, Yvette. And let's continue talking about inclusion. And I have a question for Leah. There is a clear opportunity for women and communities of color to benefit from the federal investments in infrastructure. How can labor organizations work with companies that want to expand these talent pipelines?
I'll say the two most important words that I see for this is form partnerships. I mean, no one organization can expect to do it themselves, but if you're able to form the partnerships with various organizations, I think it can help you to really touch all the points that we need to, to improve the conditions. I'll talk about, first of all, the tradeswomen's organizations. Many tradeswomen's organizations were founded by women like myself who might have entered the trades decades ago when the conditions weren't favorable for women. And because we love the trade that we're in and we want to see it improve for the future, we kind of, a lot of them put their heads together. They're able to figure out, okay, what are the things that hinder women from entering construction and what hinders them from staying? So, what's more important about these organizations is that they also know how to fix the problems. And there's so many around the country that that you can build partnerships with. I think of Building Pathways, Chicago Women in the Trades, Heartland Women in the Trades, Missouri Women in the Trades, Nevada Women in the Trades, Non-Traditional Employment for Women, Oregon Tradeswomen Inc., Texas Women in Trades. I mean, these are just a few organizations located throughout places in the country that can help these organizations train women, get them in, and also help them to give the type of assistance that they men are affected by childcare too, but women are disproportionately affected by this. So, you have certain organizations, like one of them I mentioned, Building Pathways, that's what they're focused. You have to not just, you have to be able to set the goals for yourself, know what their numbers are, how to get them, how to track them, how to see what's wrong, what's right. I know for us in New York, I leaned heavily on Chicago Women in the Trades to support us and having that kind of technical assistance when it came to recruiting and retaining women. Women need mentorship more so than men do in the construction industry. It doesn't happen as natural. Part is because women have been left out of this industry. And some of the guys still a little worried, is it okay to talk to her? She's going to think I like him. I mean, simple things like that, which, cause us not to have that natural training that we would normally get. I know within SMART, Joe Sellers, the general president for SMART, has formed a partnership with the University of Washington to really have a study on mentorship for women throughout the country and in sheet metal work. Pregnancy education, right? Well, that's going to affect just women. What does a contractor do? I still get calls sometimes, hey, she's pregnant. Do I lay her off? Really just concerned, well, if she works, will she get hurt? So that type of thing, those type of resources for education. A new school, we're having a new school now. Do we have a pump station? Yes, we're going to have a pump station. Well, that doesn't just happen overnight, right? There's a conversation there. For us, the business manager and president for Local 28 New York City, Eric Meslin, as well as the Joint Apprenticeship Committee, did the research to make sure that we have that. So I would say the biggest thing is really setting those partnerships and really honing in on the things that are going to affect women, and then to kind of systematically, kind of check off those boxes and to make sure that you address them. And for that, it takes resources. And when I say resources, I mean money. So, I mean, those are the type of things that that I think we really, can still look forward to assist in not only getting women in the trades, but more importantly, keeping them there.
Thank you, Leah. Your members are so lucky to have someone like you and the movement to have your leadership. Talking about partnerships, I was thinking about local governments, and Yvette, I had a question for you, thinking about that, like the demand for zero emissions vehicles is growing, and definitely there is a role to play from the local government. What can they do to make sure that the communities, local communities, are really benefiting from this increased demand for alternative energy sources and public investments?
Yeah, local government is really, really important because, all these wonderful things are happening high up and far away, it seems like, and then it trickles down into our communities. And then we have our local mayors and city council people even getting involved to make sure that not so much the money is distributed, right? Because that had already been decided, right? But now who gets to take advantage of the actual services, the trainings and things like that? And I was just speaking to a group of mayors, and I strongly suggested that you think of make sure that your citizens, your community members get an opportunity to participate in this. So Charger Help is all about operations and maintenance of the infrastructure. Our electricians are going to put the machines in the ground, and we're excited about that. But really, how do we make sure that the community gets to be a part of this? For Charter Help, we believe in training folks locally, so we don't fly our techs from one state all the way to another to fix a charging station. Where we get business, where we get contracts, we will train up folks in that particular community to take care of the infrastructure, and that's how you empower the community. So my advice to those local mayors and local governments, even now, if anyone's listening, as tech and infrastructure comes into your community, it is okay to ask the question, where's the training for the folks that live in this community? So as we grew in New York City, for instance, we had work in Brooklyn. Our tech is Brooklyn all the day, and for that, he does the job not only with so much more passion, but he knows the land, he knows the space, he takes pride in the work that he does there. So that's just an example of making sure that the training programs actually land with the citizens and the residents in the communities where the charging stations will be put, making sure that folks in that community can take care of the infrastructure, get some of the jobs that are being created, these net new jobs that are being created. How many of your citizens will have the opportunity to participate in that? I just suggest that you don't stay quiet on that you make sure that the training programs actually get to the people in that community, who will then have to buy a car, right? And then use your charging station and then pay for charging. And also, can we get the training, and not just the training, not just the recruitment, but can we get the well-paying jobs as well? So, and that's a commitment that Charter Help has had from the beginning. I know we inspire a lot of people, but I really hope we're encouraging a lot of other employers to think of recruitment, training, and hiring the same way, with that same passion.
Thank you, Yvette. And to close us, Michelle, I wanted to ask you, what advice do you have for these corporates, large employers, foundations who really are now very inspired and want to join the challenge and create climate resilient jobs?
Yeah, well, a few tips, I think. One is to take the time to build a deep knowledge and understanding of the issues and the key stakeholders at both the national level, but also at the local and regional levels. I think that this will help those corporations, those foundations, really design and craft a plan of action that not only addresses the U.S. workforce needs, but at the same time, concurrently, is being regionally responsive and responsible, especially to include diverse populations in the work that they're trying to execute. When you're working to problem solve the issues, and you're trying to rise to the challenge, both figuratively and literally, it requires deepening your knowledge of how best to address those issues in ways that both equip and empower individuals for job opportunities, but at the same time is also ensuring that they are positioned for success in those jobs. The other thing too, my fellow panelists have talked about this idea of collaboration and partnership. And I think about the old saying about no man is an island. It's important to appreciate what others can bring to the work and to consider how you can work both with and through smart partners to help drive toward shared goals. And then finally, I would implore those looking to do similar work around the challenge to please, please, please not discount or overlook the importance of data when it comes to trying to assess the efficacy of the initiatives that you are trying to launch to help fill the talent pipeline. You know, the data are critical not only to inform your practice and to help you to fine tune and pivot as necessary, but the data are also important so that you can tell the story of what you're doing in a compelling and cogent and evidence-based manner, in a way that hopefully inspires others to follow your lead and to take on the work of doing similar activities to try to address the issues that the challenge is intended to help mitigate. And I would also say that those data have to go beyond simply outputs, but really include attention on outcomes. What is the value that you're able to add to the populations and to the key stakeholders that you're trying to serve through your initiative, so that, again, you understand how you are affecting change within institutions, but more importantly, within people's lives.
Thank you, Michelle. I look forward to, in a year's time, talking about those outputs and outcomes with you all. And with that, I thank you very much. And I am going to pass it back to David. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Anna, and the rest of the panelists. What a tremendous set of experiences and reflections there. I think it, to me, underscored really the case that this work is important. Helped us also see some of the complexities and nuance in diversifying the fields. It's not like wave your magic wands and it happens, but it also showed us that it can be done. There really is a path forward here. So thank you all again. I know we touched on this just briefly, and we're just going to wrap up here in a second. I know we touched on it with Carmel a bit, but I wanted to highlight some of the steps that you can take if you're interested in joining this challenge. There are a couple of examples that we sort of brainstormed, of what you might do as an organization. So it might be that you have a registered apprenticeship program, then you can extend it, or you can launch a pre-apprenticeship program. You might be able to develop a new or innovative training program in these sectors that we're talking about, or offer transportation and childcare supports to ensure that they're really accessible to all. Those are just a couple of different ways, but certainly you can help increase the number and diversity of people in these sectors in lots of different ways. So certainly be creative. If you do want to get involved in the challenge or amplify existing work that you're doing that's aligned with this, you can reach directly out to the folks at the White House. So you have their emails here, or certainly reach out to us at JFF and we can help get that ready and make that connection. So with that, I will just thank you all the panelists and people who are on the call, and thank you all for joining us. Thanks also to the staff here at JFF and the White House who helped to put this together. It took a lot of effort, but hopefully it was informative. So thanks, and have a good rest of your day.